In a remote mountain village surrounded by tall pine trees and long winters, there lived a man named Mr. Park, who was known not only for his wealth, but also for his cold and calculating mind. Although he had once been a poor farmer, he slowly became the richest man in the valley by lending money to struggling families, and then taking their land when they failed to repay him. Over time, his warehouses grew larger, his fields stretched farther, and his power became unquestioned. However, while his wealth increased, the lives of the villagers became harder. Many families lost their farms during difficult winters, and although they worked harder each year, their debt only grew. Mr. Park often said, "Life rewards the strong," and he believed this deeply. In his view, kindness was weakness, and mercy was bad business. At the far edge of the same village lived a young woodcutter named Min, whose house was small and whose hands were always rough from work. Even though Min earned just enough to survive, he never refused to help others. When an elderly neighbor's roof collapsed, Min repaired it. When a widow ran out of firewood, he quietly left some by her door at night. While Mr. Park ruled with fear, Min lived with quiet respect. One winter evening, after a long day of cutting wood, Min walked through the forest as snow began to fall heavily. The sky darkened quickly, and the cold wind cut across his face. Suddenly, he heard a sharp cry echo through the trees. At first, he thought it was only the wind, but the sound came again, this time weaker and filled with pain. Following the sound, Min discovered a red fox caught in a cruel iron trap. The sharp metal teeth had clamped tightly around its leg, and blood stained the snow beneath it. As Min looked closer, he noticed a metal tag attached to the chain. The name engraved on it was Clear Park. For a moment, Min froze. He understood the danger of interfering with Mr. Park's traps. In the past, anyone who damaged his property was forced to pay heavily. Nevertheless, although fear filled his mind, compassion filled his heart more strongly. After taking a deep breath, Min used his axe to break the trap apart and gently freed the fox. He tore a strip from his coat to wrap its wounded leg and whispered softly, "Go before someone comes." The fox did not run immediately. Instead, it looked at Min in silence, its bright eyes reflecting the falling snow. Then, without a sound, it disappeared into the forest. When Mr. Park discovered the broken trap the next morning, his anger burned hotter than the winter fire. Not only did he accuse Min of destroying valuable property, but he also began spreading rumors throughout the village. He told people that Min was encouraging wild animals to attack farms and that he was a threat to public safety. While some villagers doubted this claim, others grew uncertain, especially because they feared Mr. Park's influence. Determined to protect his interests, Mr. Park climbed the mountain himself and set more traps than ever before. He placed them along narrow paths, under thin layers of snow, and near places where animals often passed. In fact, he even set a few close to Min's cabin, believing that if Min were injured, it would teach him a lesson about interfering. As the days passed, the snowfall grew heavier. The mountain became quiet in an unnatural way, as if it were holding its breath. Even the birds stopped singing. The villagers felt uneasy, though they could not explain why. Late one night, Min suddenly woke to a low rumbling sound beneath the ground. At first, he thought it was distant thunder, but the sky was clear. Then he heard something else, long, rising howls that echoed across the valley. When he opened his door, he saw dozens of foxes gathered outside his cabin. their voices joining together in a powerful warning. The ground trembled again, this time more violently. High above, near the mountain peak, a massive crack split through the thick snowpack. An avalanche had begun. Min understood immediately that the entire village was in danger. Without hesitation, he ran toward the houses below, shouting as loudly as he could, "Leave now! The mountain is breaking!" Although some villagers were confused at first, they soon saw the wall of snow racing downward under the moonlight. Panic spread quickly, and families rushed toward safer ground. Meanwhile, Mr. Park stood outside his largest warehouse, staring at the approaching avalanche. Instead of running, he hesitated. Inside the building were years of profit, grain, silver, and gold coins carefully stored away. While others fled for their lives, he chose to save his wealth. Carrying a heavy bag of gold over his shoulder, he hurried up the narrow mountain path. Snow whipped against his face, and the rumbling grew louder. Then, suddenly, a sharp metallic snap echoed in the night. Mr. Park looked down in horror. His foot had stepped directly into one of the traps he had set earlier that week. The iron teeth clamped tightly around his ankle, crushing bone. He screamed in pain and tried desperately to pry the trap open, but the mechanism was too strong. Snow rushed around his legs as the avalanche drew closer. Although he pulled with all his strength, the chain only dug deeper into the frozen ground. For the first time in his life, fear replaced pride. In that final moment, as the white wall of snow rose above him, he realized a truth he had ignored for years. He had built his power by trapping others, and now he was trapped by his own creation. The avalanche swallowed him completely. By morning, silence returned to the valley. Several buildings were damaged, but most villagers had survived thanks to Min's warning. Mr. Park's grand warehouse had disappeared under meters of snow. Days later, when searchers finally uncovered his body, they found him still locked in the iron trap. Min's cabin, however, remained standing. Strangely, the avalanche had split around it, as if guided by an invisible force. When spring arrived, the snow melted slowly, and green shoots began to rise from Min's field stronger than ever before. The villagers gathered together and chose Min as their new leader, not because he was wealthy, not because he was powerful, but because when danger came, he chose people over profit. And from that winter on, the mountain carried a lesson that parents told their children every year. The traps you set for others may one day close around you. Greed may seem strong for a time, but justice is stronger in the end. And sometimes justice does not shout. It moves quietly, like snow falling in the night, but it always leaves its mark. If this story made you think, and if you want to hear more Korean stories about courage, kindness, and consequence, please like and subscribe to Tell Korea. We share Korean culture, stories, and values in simple English, so you can grow your English while discovering the heart of Korea. See you in the next story.